Today, we're going to focus on the offensive line. And to weigh in on that, we are joined by a very special guest who played for the Giants from 2001 to 2010, helped Big Blue win Super Bowl 42 over the Patriots, now serves as the head football coach at Watchung Hills Regional High School in Warren, New Jersey. None other than former Giants offensive lineman Rich Seubert. Rich, you got Lance Medow and Paul Dottino here on Giants.com. Big Blue Kickoff Live. Greatly appreciate the time today. Hope you and yours are safe and healthy. How's everything on your end?
We're doing great. Thanks for having me on today. I look forward to talking a little bit of football with you guys.
Absolutely, and one of the reasons why we want you on the program is to focus on this year's offensive line, and I want to bring your personal experience, Rich, into perspective here, because you look at the fact that the Giants drafted 3 offensive linemen last year, Andrew Thomas, Matt Parrott, Shane Lemieux. All 3 got playing time. Your first year in the league, you had 2 appearances. Then your second year in the league, you became an every down starter. What was the biggest jump for you, Rich, when you went from year 1 to year 2 on the offensive line that maybe applies to those 3 guys in particular, assuming they all could claim starting roles?
I think it's my first year. I don't think I was ready to play football yet. I didn't understand the system. I wasn't good enough yet to play in the NFL. But that one off season. Being around the coaches, being around the players, being in the weight room lifting and doing the OTAs and the summer workouts and whatnot, it got me ready. Right, I just felt like I was mentally ready to play my second year just by being around the team for that calendar year prior.
Rich, the Giants have some young linemen on this team. In fact, they drafted 3 rookies last year, and because of the way that they rotated guys during the 2020 season, Lemieux got to play more than a month. Matthew Parrott over at right tackle got, a number of different games where he got in for, 12 plays, 15 plays or whatever. There was some question as to whether or not there was a lot of benefit in that. But I don't know, maybe you don't think, but is it really tremendously beneficial to those guys, not just to come back for their second season, but to have received so many snaps as rookies?
Yeah, I think you hit the head. I think every play you play is a learning experience, and you have a few guys coming back that played last year, right? It doesn't matter how many snaps they played, but they played. They were in the trenches. They know what it's like. They know what they need to work on going into year 2. The one thing I didn't play my first year, so I really didn't know what to work on. So if there's one thing that would have helped me from playing my rookie year is I could have honed in on the skills that I needed to become better my second year, and these guys should have that, right? Hopefully, I always said what made us good back in the day was we did everything together. You guys know that. We were, eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat, hang out at night. We all knew each other really well. We were friends, and that made us better players together.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, Rich. For somebody that has not played on the offensive line, why is there a connection to your point, the stuff you do off the field, the chemistry you build off the field, then perhaps something that translates to the field? Why do you think there's an association between those 2 factors?
Because you're playing for the guy next to you, right? So I played my majority of my career next to Sean was to my right and David was to my left. And the more I knew about those guys and the more I knew the way they thought, the more they knew about me, my strengths, my weaknesses, we could help each other out, right? Without saying words, I think we all could, say each other's thoughts. And the more we did, just the closer we became, and the closer we became, the more we wanted to play for each other and do anything for each other.
Well, when you talk about that, though, Rich, part of that is the consistency and the continuity of being able to play in the same spot for a number of years. Although David, of course, Deal was the jack of all trades, and they moved him around a lot like a ping pong ball. But the Giants have a situation where Hernandez may be fighting now to be the right guard instead of the left guard, where he was playing early in the season until Shane Lemieux wound up moving in after Hernandez had the COVID. How much of an adjustment is that going to be for Hernandez now that Gates could be on his left shoulder, and I'm guessing it could be Parrott or it could be Solder on his right shoulder instead of the other way around when he was on the left side?
He's a professional. I'm sure he will. I'm sure they're like us, right? They're in that meeting room together. They're talking together. They're watching film together. They know each other. They're professionals. They should be ready to go, right? Every rep they get next to each other is going to make them better. Yeah, he might be switching sides. I remember the year I came back from breaking my leg, and I was kind of, the tight end, the guard, if Snee got hurt, the center if Sean got hurt, the right guard, left guard, pretty much played everywhere. Even though I didn't get all the reps, with those guys in practice or in games, you still got the mental reps in the meeting rooms and watching film and talking it out prior to being out there in that field. So, if there's one advice I can give to these guys, I would really stress the more they can do together, the better they're going to be as a group. It takes 5 guys working together, and whoever you're playing next to, if you're sitting in that meeting room going over plays together, talking about football, those guys will figure it out. They're smart players.
Speaking of building continuity, a familiar name who helped you guys develop over the course of your tenure with the Giants is back in the building, and I'm talking about your former offensive line coach, Pat Flaherty, who's now an advisor, and they have a new offensive line coach in Rob Sale. From your experience working with Flats, what do you think having an experienced coach like that could do for the new offensive line coach, as well as for Joe Judge and the rest of the staff?
Everything, right? I love Coach Flats. Coach Flats, he's a very special coach to me, obviously. He was one of my 2 offensive line coaches in the league. I had Jim McNally and Coach Flaherty, and, Coach Flats and I, we still talk to this day. He came down to watch a bunch of our high school games the last few years whenever he had time. And he's got a big experience, right, to the new offensive line coach that came from University of Louisville, I believe. Breaking down film. If any of those guys in the room have any questions, Flats has seen it, coached it, heard about it, done it. Technique-wise, scheme-wise. I know I'm biased, but Coach Flats is one of the best offensive line coaches to coach the game, and I'm glad he's back in New York. It was hard to root for the teams that when he was coaching in other spots. I had to because Flats is my guy, but now I can, just go back and cheer for the Giants.
That's not a bad thing, Richie. I understand. Hey, what was your impression of Nick Gates? I mean, you had done some tinkering with center. Nick Gates, who had been a tackle at Nebraska, and then came here and they said, okay, you're going to be an interior guy, and he was a guard, and then he converts to center last year, and I think by some people's imaginations, he was a long shot to win that job. But he won it, and by all stretches, he did pretty well.
He did. He must be pretty smart, right? I don't know Nick at all. He must be a smart kid because playing centers, it's not an easy position to go and play, right? You got to step the ball, you got to step differently. Your stance is, parallel instead of staggered. But it looks like he gets after it. He likes to get after it. He plays physical, and he's smart. And if you have those few things, you can play anywhere on the offensive line. I think a lot of people get trenched in saying, "Oh, he's a tackle, he's a guard, he's a center." Listen, if you can play in the NFL, the more you can do, the better, right? And that's kind of, I think Coach Kaufman used to joke about is, hey, the more you can do, the better. The more you can do, the better. And we never complained. We just wanted to play football, and I'm sure Nick just wants to play football. And if it was playing center was his best chance to be on that field, that's what he played, and he won the job, and he played well.
We're talking with former Giants offensive lineman Rich Seubert here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. And to your point, he's played pretty much all 5 positions at some point over the course of his career. And versatility is important because, God forbid, there's an injury. At least you have somebody that has some exposure to other positions. Rich, I want to piggyback off of something you brought up earlier when you talked about the year you broke your right leg and ankle in October 2003 and then unfortunately missed 2004, and then you came back and you were sort of moved all around. It's not exactly related to what Nate Solder's going through because he wasn't hurt, but he did opt out last year. He's a polished veteran, and now he's trying to get back in the thick of things and maybe reclaim his starting job, and it could come on the opposite tackle spot on the right side. I guess what I'm getting at is, mentally, how challenging was it for you to sit out that year, then come back, and how that may relate to what Solder's got to go through?
I was just, me, myself, personally, it's a little bit different situation, obviously, but I was just excited to be back, right? Until I got rolled into and my leg stepped on again like it happened. I never really trusted it per se, but I believe like the second practice in pads, I got piled up and, I was fine. Nothing hurt. I was good to go. I was really excited just to get back out there, and I'm sure Soldier's going to be the same way. Missing a year because of his circumstance with COVID and his family. I respect his decision, and I hope the best of him. He's one heck of a football player, and I'm sure he's going to go out there and compete. You never can have enough competition, and by having these guys competing in that room together, it's just going to make them better.
One of the things that people were curious about, Rich, was if Nate, in fact, was going to come back, a guy who spent a decade in this league, coming off of the opt-out, there were some folks who thought maybe he would retire. How much better is the line, not necessarily whether or not he wins the job, but how much better are they having a guy like that in the room who can provide all kinds of wisdom to a line that, for the most part, is really rather young?
That's one thing I heard about Nate is he's a great teammate, right? So, having him in that locker room, in the meeting room, he brings so much knowledge. He's played a long time. He played for a pretty good football team out of New England. He's seen a lot of stuff, and those are the guys you want to have around. I looked at it as like, Lomas Brown when I first went to the Giants. Lomas played for many, many years. I learned so much from him. Bobby Whitfield, when I was, in my middle of my career, when they brought Bobby in to be the swing tackle, and Bobby, played a lot of football, and we just picked his brain about different things, and he was a great leader in that locker room for us. And I think that's one thing they could bring to the table.
With respect to continuity on the offensive line, Rich, which we were talking about earlier and how you mentioned, you guys pretty much knew everything about yourselves on and off the field. The other thing that I don't think is emphasized enough is the chemistry between the O-line and the quarterback. And you, of course, had the luxury to play with Eli Manning, who was extremely durable and was a polished vet and pretty much had been exposed and seen just about everything. I'm curious what you think about Daniel Jones, the importance now that he's entering year 3, Rich, and he's working with some guys that at least he's lined up with in the previous year, and how that alone could perhaps elevate his game before we even talk about the weaponry that they added in free agency.
I don't know much about quarterback play, right? When I'm watching games, I'm watching up front always. I just bad habit. But I'm excited for Daniel. I always thought Daniel has all the tools necessary to play. He reminded me of Eli when Eli first started off. Going into his third year, I'm excited to watch him and the leaps and bounds. And he's got weapons on offense. Barkley's coming back. He's got his receivers, and he's got a lot of offensive linemen, right, coming back that played last year. So he only can get better. And I'm excited. I like the way he plays, and I'm hoping he proves all the doubters wrong, because playing in New York is not easy, and everybody's gonna have opinions, and a lot of times those opinions ain't the way you want them, but those are the things that should drive you and make you want to play better and push you and nag on you and just make you compete more.
So much has been made, Rich, about Daniel and having to scramble away from the pass pressure because, the Giants had so many young offensive linemen last year, and sometimes there was a little too much heat on him. But Andrew Thomas at left tackle, despite some early rookie struggles, which every rookie has, had a very strong second half of the season. I'd like to know from your perspective as an offensive lineman, what did you see in him that made you feel better about him down the stretch as he then goes into year 2?
It was his technique, right? I just think the speed of the game might have got to him a little bit. I know he came from a big-time university playing football, but it's different, right? It's jumping into the NFL, playing left tackle from the get-go or whatnot. It's hard. I don't care who you are, and it takes time to learn, right? And it took him a little bit of time, but I think he improved every week, and his technique got better, and he must have worked hard, and he kept fighting and kept grinding, and you can see it on the field. So him going from his first year to his second year, I'm excited to see how good he can be, because I think he can be one heck of a ball player.
Rich, with respect to film study off of your last point, I think you could argue, well, it was a bit of the land of the unknown because nobody had much film on him in the NFL in the early stages of his career. And then on the flip side, he had to get a feel for all of the top pass rushers. Now that there's a little bit more out there of what he's capable of doing, and he has additional knowledge of what some of the top pass rushers are capable of doing, what's important for him as he studies film in year 2 to make sure that adjustment period continues to go smoothly?
Study yourself, right? I don't study yourself and study the best guys at your position in the league. It's not so much about watching your opponents all the time, but it's about you and how you do things. And we had D linemen when I played that what am I doing wrong? What am I doing that is hard for you? What are some of my tendencies? The more questions you can ask to your teammates, the guys you go against in practice every single day, the better it's going to make you. When I was a rookie and I pulled and tried to block Strahan, he threw me like a rag doll. He goes, "You're leaning too much." It's just like the little things from your teammates that have played a long time will make you better, right? Doing one-on-one against Justin when it came down to the three technique. Hey, Justin, why are you doing this to me? And he'd tell me, right? And I'll tell him what I saw in him, and he would tell me. And when you have that professional working relationship with the guys you're going against, trying to kick the crap out of them in practice, you're trying to make each other better.
Well, and of course, we know that the Giants' defensive front seven got significantly better last year, and now they drafted Olajari to help out with the pass rush off the edge. Rich, they say iron sharpens iron, right? And I would think that the Giants' pass rush is supposed to be better this year. That, by what you're talking about, is going to help these guys.
It will. Right? You only get better with the competition you go against every day in practice. There was many fights over the years in training camp and in practice, and it was all good in nature because you get sick of going against those same guys day in and day out. And some days they bring it, and some days you bring it, and some days you both bring it. And the days you both bring it, the crap's gonna hit the fan, and things are gonna happen. But it only makes you better. It's part of the game, and the better your O-line is, the better your D-line will be. The better your D-line is, the better your O-line is. It's just the way the cookie crumbles.
It's all about playing the trenches, as you certainly can attest to. The other layer of this, what we're talking about, that I would think would help not just the offensive line, but the offense overall, is the fact that, Rich, this is year 2 under Jason Garrett, and Daniel Jones and the offense have had multiple coordinators over the last few years, including Daniel Jones going back to college. You worked with a few different offensive coordinators when you were with the Giants. You had Sean Payton, you had John Huffnagel, you had Kevin Gilbride. When you remember back what year 2 was like when you inherited the same offensive coordinator, how much of a difference, Rich, at least for an offensive lineman, was that compared to perhaps when you would go from one scheme to another in the span of 2 years?
Well, you should know. You as a player should know the playbook better, right? It's the same offensive coordinator. Some things might get tweaked, but the terminology is all going to stay the same. So it was always difficult that first year when you had a new coordinator. The terminology, everything, it's football, right? It stays the same, but just the wording might be a little different. And once you're comfortable with the playbook, you can play better. I always thought it would take 2 to 3 years to get really good at your craft. Yeah, no matter what you do, those years you take and you learn it, and every rep you get, you just you put it in your memory bank, and every time you go over to meeting rooms, you put it in your memory bank, and after about 2-3 years, you should know everything, right? You shouldn't have to be told how to block power because it hasn't changed, and how to block 62 protection or 76 protection, because those things are instilled in you, right? And it's just common knowledge. And going into year 2 with the same terminology with Coach Garrett, and pretty much the offense going back intact, it should be a lot better.
Rich, I have a bit of a philosophical question, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but you were an undrafted rookie free agent. You were given a chance to earn your way onto the team and to earn your way into the starting lineup, and you did it. David Deal was a third-day pick. He was given a chance. He earned it. I mean, you guys didn't have a bunch of first-round draft picks on your line. The Giants, even though Thomas was a first-rounder, Parrott was a third, Lemieux was a fifth, Hernandez was a second, Gates was an undrafted rookie free agent. When the team says, hey, I know you guys aren't number 1 picks, but we believe in you. We want to give you a chance. We want you to grow. We think you guys can do the job. And they didn't draft any offensive linemen this year. Is there any value to that, either emotionally or mentally, to these young kids now, that they're being given the chance to earn something?
I'm sure it is, right? Every year the draft will come around. You just hope they don't draft somebody in the first 2 rounds at your position because you're going to have a dogfight in your hands. But now going back to, where you're drafted, being a free agent, I never cared, right? I just wanted the opportunity to play, and it didn't matter if I was going to be a first-round pick, which I wasn't, or a free agent, right? When you're playing, you don't say, I'm a first-round pick. I deserve the position. I'm like, dude, people get beat out all the time. I think Antonio Pierce had the thing in his locker with everybody drafted his year, right? And there was only a few guys left, and that was my year too. So it doesn't matter how you get to the league. It matters how long you stay, right, and how well you play. So not drafting somebody this year at that position, it should give them confidence that, yes, hey, the organization, the general manager, the coaches, the owners, they trust us. They think we're good enough. Now they got to go put the work in to make sure you tell them that.
The other thing that was notable with respect to that group that Paul just referenced, that the front office has certainly echoed a voice of optimism and confidence in, is a number of those guys, at least at the tackle position, rotated in and out. And you talked about your group, you had versatility, you specifically, Rich. I'm just wondering, when you are exposed to playing next to different guys maybe over the course of a game, so for example, if Andrew Thomas is playing next to a guard for a few snaps and then another guard comes in, or the guard is playing next to a different tackle, how big of an adjustment is that over the course of the game if the Giants decide to continue that in order to continue to give some of these young guys more exposure next season?
They must practice it, right? I'm not out there at practice, but obviously they must practice those lineups. And they probably go over to plays that they want to run with those lineups in there. I don't know what they do in practice. I couldn't tell you that, but I think after a while it just becomes natural to you, right? No matter what you're doing. So if you're going back and forth, after the first few weeks, you kind of you get used to it. You get used to both guys and both sides. And I always said the biggest thing would be probably being in a right-handed stance to a left-handed stance. I was on the left side, maybe because I was over there for a while, but going to the right side always, just the stance would throw me off more than anything else. Playing next to Dave or Kareem, those two guys, we all talked the same way. So, it didn't matter that much per se, but one, you got to be a smart player, because I could see how people get confused with, hey, which way's the ball going, right or left? If you're playing right side or left side, but he's a pro, he can do it. If that's what they want to do to get more guys experience, so be it. It's their call, and I agree with what they do. I like those guys.
Rich, before we let you go, I know you're a Giants for life, and we all appreciate everything you've done for the organization. And I know you're out there coaching high school football. You're out there in the great outdoors when you get a chance. But I also know you have a charity. And, we should tell people a little bit about that before we let you go, because I know community is very important to you.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate this. I started up in 2008, right? We did a charity trap shoot back in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, to raise money for cardiac research in honor of my grandmother, who received a heart transplant in 1987. From there, we raised over $2 million. Our goal was to get $1 million for an endowment for cardiac research. We passed that after the fourth year. So now we're raising money for whatever the clinic and hospital, the Marshall Clinic, they need. And the last couple of years, it's been for child life specialists and for the child's cancer clinic back home. And we have not had an event for the last 2 years, but this year we actually did virtual games with patients at the clinic, which I had Snee and O'Hare and Booth, and Gray Rugemer from the just great being back home from Wisconsin. He's with the Packers now working, so they're excited. Some local celebrities helped out, and it was really fun, right? We had some donations, and those poor kids, right, during COVID have been stuck in a hospital with no visitors, and maybe one or two family members could go in there to visit them, and I just thought, we can't do an event, but we need to do something to get back. And spending 30 minutes playing a virtual game with somebody, I enjoyed it, for Pete's sakes. I hope the kids enjoyed it. I'm sure they did, and I just look forward to keep doing something to help out, because that's what we do, right? We all try to help as much as we can.
Absolutely. Well said. Rich, just out of curiosity, if people want more information or if they want to assist, is there a website or anything that they could go to get more info on that?
There is. It's the MarshallClinic.org, and then you can just go / Rich Seubert Celebrity Trap Shoot, or you can just Google, Rich Seubert and then charity, and I think it'll pop up. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, those are the best ways to find it.
Sounds good. Well, he is former Giants offensive lineman Rich Seubert, who is now doing a lot of great work in the community, as well as the head football coach at Watchung Hills Regional High School in Warren, New Jersey. Played for the Giants from 2001 to 2010, and he helped Big Blue, of course, win Super Bowl 42 over the Patriots. Rich, can't thank you enough. Greatly appreciate the time and the insight. Hope you and yours continue to stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to talking to you down the road.
Hope to see you soon, Rich. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I enjoyed it. I miss you guys. You guys know that, and I'll be in there soon.
Sounds good. Our pleasure having you on the program.